Hello, Danny. I am glad to have you here again on our channel. And I need to start this episode from the wishes for the new year. Okay, so I wish all of us to have breakthrough in this new year in 2021, and may this year be better than the last one, not better than the next one. That's the saying from my country. Okay, so let's remind our audience who you are. You are ex-ABC spokesman who discovered that 6 main corporations are controlling the entire mass media outlets. That's why we are in trouble. Actually, yes, exactly. Actually, let's start why we are here where we are and what brought us to this moment of time.
Slavik, pleasure to join you once again. It's
Pleasure
good to review the history that we were not taught in school.
Yes.
History you would not see on, unless you search for it. You won't find it on any of the mainstream media, all of this hidden history that has brought us up to today. But the glitches in the matrix of the perception matrix, you call it, are coming out all over the place, and it's causing a global awakening on this planet, as evident.
That's what we need.
That's what we are doing, and that's
yes.
It's going to be transformational. All right. How this whole thing got to be the way it is, back when I testified in Washington as one of the top secret military witnesses back in 2001, we were disclosing illegal secret government operations and the extraterrestrial presence. It was the largest event in the history of the National Press Club. I joined 20 witnesses. It was 22 cameras in the back row of the mainstream media. Effectively, being an ex-ABC newsman, I took a keen interest on how the media is going to cover all these explosive testimonies saying that our government's been denied access. We've had free energy, anti-gravity for decades. These illegal operations going in completely with no oversight from our legal constitutional government. It was an eye-opening for me back in 2001. And so I've been studying for about 20 years. And as I study, I start to realize that there is a deep state, is what they call it. And a deep state is kind of lined with, the banking elite, Nazis. There's influences with the Vatican, secret societies, even the Chinese Communist Party. The idea is that their ideologies and their goals are similar to a new world order, where a government that has complete population control over the populace, and that they also, the idea of eugenics to control the population in that way. This has been this situation for quite some time. You look back at in the U.S. history, for example, they set up the Federal Reserve in 1913 and 1917. They took over complete control of all the newspapers. There was 25 major newspapers at Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and Warburg who helped set up the Federal Reserve. They took control of perceptions in the public. In 1921, the Council of Foreign Relations was developed, and they basically set the talking points of the media back in the day. Later in the future, in 1954, the Nazi SS set up the Bilderberg meetings. I'm jumping ahead of myself.
That's okay.
In 1945, we have Operation Paperclip. The Nazis had a plan called Weltanschauungskrieg, means worldview warfare. They wanted to infiltrate into the United States and take over a matrix of perception which includes the mainstream media, Hollywood, our education system, which they rewrote what happened at the end of World War II. This infiltration in 1950, Alan Dulles, who was infamous for the Nazi infiltration,
Yes.
set up Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA controls the public's perceptions. And as I mentioned, 1954, Prince Bernhard, Netherlands, he's the Nazi SS who set up the Bilderberg meetings, which they select who's going to be the president. They select what the talking points are. Eisenhower, a key element, President Eisenhower in 1955, there was an agreement, a surrender with the Nazis. And at that time, a completely new MJ-12 group that controlled the extraterrestrial matter was set up that took over from what Truman originally set up back in 1947. This was led by Alan Dulles, and by 1958, President Eisenhower found that he was now out of the loop. He was now being denied access. And so he wanted to see what was going on. All the operations of extraterrestrial engineering over at Wright-Patterson are moved over to Area 51 and S4. He tried to go in to look at that, and they denied him access until he threatened to go in with the First Army out of Colorado and invade the base and take it over. After being denied access, President Eisenhower did something extraordinary that, for us, that affects today. He set up a secret U.S. Marine Corps intelligence unit that would act in the future as an institutional safeguard if our constitutional republic was ever threatened by this Nazi alliance. So ever since that surrender agreement was made and Eisenhower was denied access, every single president, CIA director, well, I don't know about every president, maybe George H.W. Bush,
Yes.
CIA director, heads of intelligence are all being denied access. It started with, John F. Kennedy wanted to release the UFO files, and he was assassinated by a directive set up by Alan Dulles. You have, Jimmy Carter made it a campaign promise, denied by CIA Director George Bush Sr. Clinton acknowledged that the secret government he wasn't in control of was overseeing this reality. Woolsey was brought into a meeting with Dr. Greer, and the CIA director said he
didn't have access.
Yeah, why I don't have access?
Exactly.
I mean, what the hell is going on here? And so this went along. This has been the case ever since Eisenhower. And so in 1993, I joined a group of researchers outside of Area 51. We're meeting with scientist Robert Lazar, who was working at the S4 facility, reverse engineering. This meeting was just outside the base. The base reacted with a complete lockdown, and they sent out an NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, security advisory to the base to avoid contact with these people and everything. And they sent with a long distribution list, which included unacknowledged special access programs. Now, this document got in the hands of Dr. Stephen Greer, who went to the Pentagon with astronaut Edgar Mitchell and Commander Will Miller to meet with the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson. The admiral was denied access, and he told Dr. Greer, he was furious, because him and his constitutional authority, if anyone, should have been allowed access. And so he said to Dr. Greer, he gave him instruction to, go before the mainstream media of the world with your witnesses, which he, by the way, started collecting back in 1993 after the meeting with CIA Director James Woolsey. They started collecting hundreds of witnesses. I'm just one of over 500 and some witnesses, which is now, close to over 1,000.
How many of them were there? 540 odd?
20, we couldn't fit all 500, on the National Press Club, but 20 of them were willing to go before the cameras in each state after our testimony, that were willing to testify under oath, it's penalty of perjury, before an open congressional hearing. And so Vice Admiral Wilson said, you have permission to go to the mainstream media of the world where these witnesses are willing to testify and reveal it to the world, because these operations are, quote, illegal, he says, and they are. And so in May 9th of 2001, almost 20 years ago, I joined other witnesses that were talking about, 0-point energy we've had for decades that could really get rid of nuclear oil and coal. We have anti-gravity craft, was made back in 1954. Bases on the moon, nukes being shut down, 57 different species already categorized, astronauts sworn to secrecy, what happened in 1969. Presidents, CIA directors, heads of intelligence, all being denied access, trillions of dollars being taken in these illegal, unacknowledged special access programs, on and on and on. Each one of these testimonies, my small testimony was, I was in naval communications, and secret reports going to Chief of Naval Operations of flying discs coming out of our oceans that are glowing 70 feet in diameter, that the Navy was reporting. My testimony was a small fragment of what everybody else was saying.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's a lot of activity, as people are finding out, in our oceans of either deep underground alien bases or joint U.S. ET operations, or even Nazi Germany, because they developed their bases, my God, back in the 40s. So what happened was, being an ex-ABC newsman, I was wondering, how could all these explosive testimonies and the 22 cameras in the back row, how could this not change everything on this planet if all this gets out? But in 2001, Slavic, I had no idea what Operation Mockingbird was.
Yeah. Most people didn't. I didn't know that neither back then.
And so, I'm watching this, and I'm watching CNN, and they say, oh, I want to have a congressional hearing on the reality of UFOs, completely omitting, it's what they call a limited hangout. They only let out the piece of information that's safe, that's not going to be damaging to reveal their secret operations, because they control, ever since the Bilderberg meetings, which, along with the Council of Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission, they basically control the talking points for the 6 corporations that control just about everything you see and hear. And so when CBS interviewed me, I said, I'm not going to do this unless I can say we have the scientists willing to prove we have, these technologies released to the world. Promised up and down, and said, oh, I'm sorry, the higher executives made me cut that part out. And so, it's been 20 years since I testified. And in 2002, it went viral on the internet, so, like in Poland and all over the world, they were able to see some of these testimonies, and it started people to, what is this? How come I didn't see this on the evening news? And so it did inspire in the UK a hacker, Gary McKinnon, who hacked into Naval Space Command computer systems, and they wanted to put him away for, the Bush administration wanted to put him away for 70 years in prison because he revealed that the US Navy, started back in the 1980s, they developed the US Navy secret space program with huge kilometer-long spacecraft, non-terrestrial officers lists. I mean, he released a major secret out to the world that we have this secret space program that's been going on with technologies that would make anything you see in the science fiction movies, Star Trek and everything else, look pale in comparison. And so, what's interesting is about these secret space programs that you have a lot of knowledge in, working with Dr. Sala and Good and other witnesses, that they have this ability to take recruits on a separate timeline of 20 years, bring them back to the point of enlistment, age regress them back. Yeah. And as 20 years goes along in this timeline, they start to have a total recall.
Yes.
Of their 20-year
what Corey Goody was saying. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was two witnesses that were, when Eisenhower set up this U.S. Marine Corps Special Section as an institutional safeguard in the future, two witnesses reveal that. One is Randy Kramer, who was in the U.S. Marine Corps Special Section. He says the U.S. Marine Corps Special Section, quote, the U.S. Marine Corps Special Section was created by a secret executive order by President Eisenhower as a kind of institutional safeguard. And another very revealing U.S. Marine Corps intelligence witness, Michael Gerloff in the U.S. Marine Corps secret space program, said, and I think this is very revealing what he says. He says, quote, a secret government, so to speak, had come into being surrounding all the secrecy surrounding the military industrial complex, as Eisenhower warned about, in his farewell address. And that they in some way had lost control of that. In a sense, there was a secret government operating behind the scenes. I believe Eisenhower and the good men and women who were of like mind, who did not want to lose their souls, who did not want to see this occur, but realized that on some level it was already kind of too late. My memories as an intelligence officer, the briefings that I attended, that there was a plan put in place, and it was going to be a very long-term plan, much further down the road into our future, where this information was going to be brought out. Now, it's my speculation that this military, from based upon witness testimonies and documents, is the only thing I have to go by since I was not there personally. But from all indications that I can see after 20 years of researching onto this, the U.S. Marine Corps Intelligence Special Section had this plan that was operating behind the scenes ever since they killed Kennedy, and they put their assets in place, starting with Lyndon B. Johnson and every president, coming up to Obama, and they were planning on having Hillary. It was the Bilderberg choice for the presidency. But what happened was in 2015, military intelligence came and approached Donald Trump to run for president, to fill that position of commander-in-chief, because the plan, was basically to take down this infiltration of this deep state using the rule of law. And, we've seen a whole lot of executive orders coming out.
Exactly.
human rights abuse and corruption, child sex trafficking, change the Uniform Code of Military Justice, allow these trials to be expedient. We have 200,000 plus sealed indictments amassed. And, and this is, this has been, what's been happening is in 2017, the subject that we can't talk about, or else your video will be taken down, but
Yes.
the 17th letter of the alphabet, started doing posts on the back channels of the internet. And basically the reason why they had to do that is because they had to educate the public, because of the control of the mainstream media. If they were to just to come out and do a military coup against this infiltration, the media had basically influenced the population's perception in such a way that they make the criminals as the put them up on the pedestal, and the true heroes and patriots, they
will look like criminals.
Yeah, exactly. They make the criminals look innocent and the innocent look like criminals.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So what happens is this we'll call it military intelligence without having to use that letter of the alphabet.
Yes.
They have been simply asking the public questions and having the public do their own research. And this has been so extremely threatening to this deep state cabal that's in control of the media, that all of the big media and big tech have been highly attacking, calling it a Nazi cult, deranged, conspiracy, violent group, trying to deter anybody from looking into it. And online, if you even talk about it, your account gets taken down.
Yes.
And so, because it's so extremely threatening. And you have to look at, why is it so extremely threatening? What's the big threat about asking the public questions? So the importance of why this is because the public needs to be, this is why what's happening today with the media, when there's obvious, you can't even say the word, irregularities in the election.
Yes. Well, okay, I can say that it's fraud. It's total fraud. Yeah.
Okay. In an extreme way, that's being on the social media. A lot of people are taking notice. Also, there's glitches in the perception matrix of the scamdemic, you could call it. That's another whole subject. But there's these inconsistencies. And so what's happening is that because of the extreme censorship and the attacking and the inconsistencies of the mainstream media just looking at you on the evening news and saying, there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever, what that is doing is totally revealing who they are and the agenda behind them. This is a great thing, because otherwise we would keep going along into the future, kind of trusting that trustworthy looking anchor person on the news that's telling you this information that's completely fabricated, and is
that's genius plan.
Its only purpose is to support the hidden agenda of the deep state. And so people are starting to become aware of this. It's causing a public awakening. And what is about to happen is, my God, when we testified back in 2001, I saw what the mainstream media was doing. I traveled in major cities across the United States, every single time the affiliates would come in, they would make fun of it or try. And it's like, my God, the media is completely controlled. I became aware, and that you know, when we met up with senators and Congress people up on Capitol Hill after the National Press Club event, we became aware that all of them are out of the loop. In fact, I put an online fax on, and we had 30,000 faxes go into the president and the representatives and senators. And it became aware that they were all indoctrinated because of the way they responded to all these 30,000. I started to document it and put it up on the webmatrix.net, all their responses, and it became aware that they were indoctrinated how to respond with official denials from NASA and Project Blue Book of the Air Force and everything. So I thought, if our government, there's no way to transform this situation because our government is out of loop. You can imagine if presidents, CIA directors, and heads of intelligence are being denied access, the senators and congressmen aren't going to be read into it. And if the media is completely controlled, how is the situation ever going to change? How could it ever be transformed? And when we have technologies...
Now we are coming to the point. Yes, exactly. How is it going to be transformed?
Well, this is the exciting part. This is the exciting part here in 2021. Now, not to say, you know, one of the things we revealed was the multiple false flags, you know, Werner von Braun's deathbed about interesting, you know, he said the next one's going to be the terrorist event. And May 9th, 2001 was 4 months away from the 9/11 event, which took everything off the radar once that happened. And they put all sorts of executive orders with draconian measures put in place. The next threat was going to be rogue nations of concern, and we have North Korea. But that situation, anyway, you know the whole story about what happened with Hawaii and the nuke being taken out and everything like that. Anyway, we're moving along. The next one on the list was asteroids, with the final one being the alien false flag event. But I don't think it's going to get any further. If it was, we'd have an asteroid be coming down, you know, or something like that. But
I was going to ask you that question.
Yeah. And, you know, they have the technology to pull it off. It's called rods from God. You know, they could simulate a asteroid event if they want. But I believe the military intelligence, ever since, you know, when Trump was in Trump Tower and he was being spied on by the Obama administration, as we all know now, Vice Admiral or Admiral Mike Rogers, who's head of the NSA, came up and warned him about it. And so what's happened is the NSA is in control by the white hats. Whereas, see, there's white hats and black hats in the CIA, NSA, NRO, DIA, you know, all of them. But there's a lot of black hats in the CIA. And according to the military intelligence post, you know, Snowden actually was weakening the NSA's sources and methods by revealing a lot of the NSA, you know, source codes and so forth. So he was actually a deep state asset that looked like a hero for showing all the, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard that. I've read it. And to be honest, I was caught at first with that because I thought he was a good guy.
Me too.
Later on, honestly,
Yeah, I celebrated him. I thought, fantastic. You know, somebody who had the balls to, you know, go up against the most powerful intelligence agency on the planet. But there's more to the story, as there usually is with things.
Yeah, that's right.
So right now, you know, if the military was to do a coup against this illegal infiltrated operation that has deep, this infiltration, yes, the Nazis infiltrated in, but there's a global cabal syndicate that has a similar mindset. I said in the beginning, the Chinese Communist Party goes right along with that mindset.
Yep.
And global population control and a complete controlled society as is revealed. All this infiltration into our government, they the leaks are coming out, what was on the hard drives on the, Hunter Biden, all of the amazing amount, huge, massive amount of election irregularities, we'll call them,
Yes.
that is getting more and more revealed. I think on January 6th coming up, it's my hope that the public,
It's this Tuesday, yeah.
The media will no doubt try to spin or ignore, or, as it usually does. But I think it will get to a point where, military intelligence kind of revealed that, there may be a time when the emergency broadcast system will be enacted. Now, I used to be a broadcast engineer, and I had to set up for the radio station, in case the president or an emergency hits, all channels of broadcast, AM, FM, radio, TV, internet, this message gets distributed. It's a system that's already put in place called the emergency broadcast system. Mm-hmm. It would be through that avenue that they could override the mainstream media's perception management operations. And I'm just theorizing here based on a lot of information that there could be, a lot of witness testimonies being given on the, of course, they've been coming out with the deep fake videos, it's like saying, yes, oh, well, that's all deep fake, but there's ways to make the video in such a way that is actually, you can tell whether it's a deep fake or whether it's real, yes, from what I understand. And so all this information, indisputable evidence could be come out and educate the public. Now, still there will be, as far as, the Trump supporters, they won't have any trouble with this. They'll, yeah, all right, this is great. But all the huge political divide that has been created, that they would say, Trump, is turned into a dictator. We need to call on the UN to try to take over. He's trying to take over our country. Or
even CCP. As Dr. Sala was saying, as even CCP, we can call to bring down the dictator here. And that's the biggest threat.
Right. That would be, or, another false flag operation, or, according to military intelligence, that there's going to be a sequence of events. I mean, my God, you've already seen the extreme censorship of so many very popular, informative channels on the
that's right,
social media networks have been completely removed. And so if they come out with this information, they will, try to sanitize it. But I think something's going, we're just in the days ahead before this January 6th, where they're going to do the count, and there's going to be accountability for that. And so we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yes, let's hope. I am really hoping for it, because it didn't go well when I was watching all these US election and all the fraud. I can tell that well, it's just something not right. And everybody, well, I mean, mass media is quiet about it, and they support just one part, obviously Biden, nobody else. That's something wrong. Even me as an observer, I see it, it's just completely wrong.
If you're unaware of the control of the media by the agendas that are set by, you know, the Bilderbergs and the Council of Foreign Relations, etc., if you're not aware of that, watching the media can be very disturbing and depressing.
Yes, that's right.
If you are aware of that, it's still disturbing.
Yes,
it's still disturbing because you're watching these people look at you and lie to your face, you know. So what's kind of interesting is on Inauguration Day, Trump did sign something that implicated a secret executive memo that would release advanced technologies. We're talking about, you know, anti-gravity, anti-aging.
And Dane, that was one of questions from our audience. Yes, so please elaborate. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, the Space Force is going to be a vehicle for that. You know, the Chinese, as Dr. Sala has brought out clearly, that, you know, we could be very vulnerable to a space Pearl Harbor, where the Chinese are ramping up their space program and take out all of our satellites, because so much of our military and everything relies on GPS. Everything, the whole world would be crippled with the GPS satellites being taken out. There is new technology being brought out that's using surface wave technology that does not use. It's almost like
satellites.
The
it doesn't use satellites. All right. Okay.
No, it's actually using a ground wave that's around the surface of the Earth, from the ionosphere to the surface, you know, like Tesla was going to do to simulate. But this ground wave can be used for navigation and also for transferring power too, as well. But, you know, I'm more for, I don't believe in putting meters on power. I believe in everyone should have access to a small energy device that gives their home or business multiple kilowatts of clean, non-polluting energy. I had 10 years experience meeting with scientists and inventors, receiving national security orders, people being murdered, to try to get this out. I gave up after 10 years, knowing that there's such an extreme control that it started actually with the Invention Secrecy Act going all the way back to 1951. But I believe the Space Force is going to be, already the US Navy is releasing a lot of patents on fusion reactors, anti-gravity, force field shields. I mean, stuff out of Star Trek.
Dan, may I interrupt you?
Yes, please.
May I interrupt you? Before we started, you mentioned something. You had a call from your friend scientist from France, and he invented a device that is very powerful, and this is with free energy. Is that correct? Yeah. Could you elaborate on it?
I've, you know, since 2004 to 2014, I connected and met with many scientists and inventors around the world, vetting their technologies. He's one scientist that, a little history, he had a device making about 150 watts or so of power, very inexpensive, small. He had about 70,000 of these made in Japan. He was given a national security order, thrown in prison, his vehicles were blown up. Years later, he came up with another energy device, completely different design, which he wasn't held to the national security order on, right? You know, national security order basically states it's from the secret system within the patent office, sensitive application system, anything, anybody's got anything with anti-gravity, free energy, you know, any kind of technology that be world-changing and jeopardize the global profits of the, you know, the big energy Mongols.
Yes.
Basically, they get one of these that says your invention has been deemed to be a threat to the national security of the United States. Therefore, you cannot share it with anyone, and anybody you have shared it with, you must, supply their names and everything, So anyway, he's come up with another device that produces about a kilowatt of energy, and it's scalable up to a megawatt.
That's the
And
big one.
yeah, and he's working on another device lately. He was running power, and the power company came in and put a lock on his box anyway, so I won't go into too many details. But one of the interesting things I was sharing with you earlier, that he was able to, the Navy salvage yard back in the early 70s, acquire one of the Tesla generators that were used on the USS Eldridge for the Philadelphia experiment.
Project
And after
Montauk, yes.
many years of working on it, he was actually able to get it functioning, and it created a dimensional portal. And the secretary, he was in the other room. The secretary didn't notice anything until the wall started waving like
Floating.
this.
Okay, all right.
And a creature came through the wall. And
what kind of creature?
Oh, if you go to the webmatrix.net, go to
Okay.
1943 timeline.
Okay.
There is a photograph. She had a Brownie Instamatic camera and had the presence of mind during this thing to take a snapshot of this being, who was saying to her mentally, what are you people doing? What do you want? Anyway,
Yeah, I will find that later on. Yeah.
You can see its head, its eyes, its arms and legs coming out of the wall next to a flower pot on the thing. Anyway, he was able to develop it further and was able to expand. Like everything in the universe is plasmatic, made of oscillating on frequencies, and that the space in between these oscillatory particles that make up everything is huge, massive.
Yes.
And the Tesla generator apparently was able to expand the molecules in such a way that he had a lab rat walk through a solid 2-inch wood cutting block to get to the cheese on the other side of the cage, but using the Tesla generator on it.
Wow.
So the rat was able to walk through.
Wow.
And he analyzed the rat after and found out the DNA of the wood had combined with the rat.
With
so
rat's
it's not
DNA.
exactly.
Wow.
This reflects back on the Philadelphia experiment. What happened to those poor sailors? Yeah. Navy, never again volunteer yourself. Navy.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
They
obviously lost their lives, yeah.
So anyway, that's just a little side story. But anyway, back to our timeline of 2021. These advanced technologies, in the space programs, they have what's called med beds, where, if you had your arm blown off, they could regenerate your arm, they could reverse age you, they could alter your memories like they do in the space program. These technologies could be produced on a large scale. You realize what this would do to the corrupt medical establishment that we currently have on this planet, with the pharmaceutical industries that were originally infiltrated. Well,
Dan, believe me, I do know what would it do, but please explain that to our audience, to people who might not be aware of it.
Well, I.G. Farben was Hitler's main supporter, and the Nuremberg trials in 1946, I believe, they established against the Nazi doctors informed consent principle. In other words, you don't do anything to anybody unless they are informed and they give you their consent. This was established in 1946. And this should be very much applied today. When you look at the Supreme Court has ruled that the pharmaceutical corporations have absolutely no liability for the vaccines.
Exactly.
and that no one should. There should never be mandatory vaccination for anyone. And there's anyway, that's a whole nother rabbit hole,
Yes.
going into Bill Gates working with DARPA and nanobots and 5G activation and everything.
Yeah, we might not have enough time to talk it through. Yeah.
So what's exciting now is we're right on the threshold. There's you have what 70 some million people who are looking at what happened with the voting, what happened to their vote. And they have a lot of people who are not going along with what's on the mainstream media. So we have, along with all the evidence that they, with the NSA, they know where every one of these, just imagine, this is the deep state criminal syndicate is a worldwide network connected with people who a lot of people don't even know the names of, that are pulling the strings behind the puppet masters. And this has been going on for quite some time. And with the capabilities of the NSA, which are quite extensive, ever since the White Hats gained control, they know where all these people are. They know everything that they've done. With the rule that with 9/11, they put all these draconian laws. When Trump came in, he brought in all these executive orders to use the rule of law against this global criminal syndicate that's tied together with all these people. And it could be almost incomprehensible what could be coming down in this next month or so. It could be like the complete takedown of all of this, which means that the technologies would be released. The world could be freed from, all these, I had to go in combat action in the Vietnam War because of the false flag, and all these continual wars of the military industrial complex that they kept feeding for all their, continual agendas.
And Danny,
the world is so tired of these wars.
And Danny, do you expect it would happen 2021? That was another question from our audience. Do you think the release of these technologies will happen in 2021? I wish it did.
I'm hesitant on giving any dates about anything, but from indications, from if the NSA has it all on these people, and if the laws are in place, and see, we have the greatest military on the planet, and the military operates differently than
civilian
than the politics.
Yeah, well.
So they could, with these executive orders put in place, just have massive, and you have to look at, when they started doing these when the first one back in 2017 in December of human rights abuse and corruption, which read anybody in this criminal syndicate is doing one or the other. They started expanding Guantanamo Bay considerably. So, there's treasonous crimes.
Yeah.
Treason's very serious. Yeah. Some will, do.
Is it penalty of death for treason in US?
Yeah, it's a penalty of death.
Okay. All right.
And some may, who knows? We'll see. It's up to the Justice Department to determine what is the appropriate justice for the crimes against humanity that these people have done.
Okay.
And then you have to think about not only not only on the surface of the earth, but all of the deep underground military bases, the operations going on there. And, you know, we just recently had the Israeli space head talking about the operations joint ET-US on Mars that are going on. There has been a lot of human rights abuse. The Nazis, when they set up Base 211, you know, back in 30s and 40s, they were using slave labor, and they still use slave labor. The corporations that they worked with are still working with those corporations. And it's interesting that Obama did the Space Act of 2015, where it would allow the corporations that are doing space mining. This is 2015. Supposedly we only went to the moon in 1969, right?
Yes.
He's making something that would take corporations off the hook for liability for using human rights abuse in space for mining operations. You know, they set these laws up to protect themselves. And it's also interesting, I think it was in, was it 20, not trying to remember the date, but the British Interplanetary Society, they brought together some of their top minds to figure out a scenario, a hypothetical scenario, like what would happen if we had a Nazi dictator on Mars that was running a slave colony? How would we overthrow this dictator? And why would you spend the money to bring all these minds together?
I think it was 2014 or something like that. Yes, but I know exactly what you are talking. What you are talking about. Yeah.
So all these little glitches in the reality matrix kind of pop out while the average citizen gets trusting the mainstream media, thinking nuclear, oil, and coal is our only way of powering, and that we went to the moon in 1969 and that's it.
And we never come back there. Which is weird.
Imagine the psychological shock that this population on this planet, you know, it was a shock to me in 2001 when I researched the hundreds of witness testimonies that were, when you look at all the authenticated secret documents and you look at all the testimonies of individuals and you look at that over a long chronology, that's how I had to get my mind around it, is because of
Dan, may I ask you a question?
Doing a chronological, you know, trying to put it all together to get an idea. Not to say that I have it all figured out, I want to make that clear, but there's a heck of a lot of indications that point in this direction.
Okay, Dan, may I ask you a question? So before 2001, you didn't believe UFO at all?
Oh, no. I mean, I had my military experience in 1969 with the Navy, you know, secret reports authenticated that I'm, you know, I worked at the Naval Communications Station in San Francisco as a high-speed code operator on a ship off the coast of Alaska. The crew witnessed a reddish-orange, glowing 70-foot diameter saucer come off port bow and then shoot straight up, going over 7,000 miles per hour, according to the blips on the radar operator. My testimony was minor compared to what, you know, the other 57 different species, bases on the other side of the moon, you know. You know, my testimony was it turns out there's a huge amount of reports of extraterrestrial or whatever they are, flying saucers.
No, sorry, Dan. I just thought that you were disbelievers before that, but I missed that part. When you said that.
That seeded my question. It seeded a question in my head, and actually, I've been off and on since 1969 researching, and then when I went to Washington in 2001 to testify, that really made me, I mean, I thought, my God, how is everything not going to be different and change? To realize that we have these technologies. And so that is what made me dig deeper
Mm-hmm.
to realize. But what an incredible thing that military intelligence. Thank God what Eisenhower did. If the military
Exactly.
intelligence operation that's working with the Trump administration is indeed what President Eisenhower set forth as an institutional safeguard, thank God for that man, you know,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
putting that in place. Or we
Yeah.
could have a very, you know, a very sad future on Earth.
Yes. So let's finish. Let's end this episode with some optimistic perspective, optimistic message.
Oh,
So
it's the most optimistic ever, you know, that people are becoming aware that the mainstream media is lying to them and
yeah.
is being controlled by an agenda. And now with military intelligence, millions of people have now become, as they say, you know, woke
Yes.
to what's going on. And so once you hit, you know, because we're all connected to a morphogenic field, and that as a collective mind, as each one of us starts to become aware, you'd be surprised that, you know, people who you wouldn't even imagine would be talking and thinking the way we're talking about are talking like that. And so it's like
And I experience it a lot now. I experience a lot people who before they wouldn't even think about that. Now they are just like scratching their heads, and it's yeah, maybe it's true, maybe it's true. So as you are saying, yes, it speeds up.
as soon as once you crack a Pandora's box open on
Yeah,
this, you can never put the lid back on. Once you start to
exactly.
see what's going on, you start looking in, you start doing a question hits your mind. When you find the answer to that question, you say, oh my God, yeah, that did happen. Well, how
Yeah,
did this happen? What's behind that? And you say, oh my God, yeah, oh my God, everything I've learned in school and the media has been completely controlled. The Nazis did infiltrate and they did create a
yeah,
matrix of perception. We have been all born and indoctrinated into this false reality. But
yes,
now everything's about to change. Everything's about to be revealed, and the
exactly.
technologies to be released. You know, as people worried about overpopulation, we've
Yeah,
we can go to other planets, and there's plenty of room for everybody, and people don't have to just
exactly.
die at 75 years old or whatever. I'm going to be 72 here pretty soon.
Oh,
So,
really?
well, not
Oh,
pretty April anyway, but you know,
no,
I'm
you
getting
look
up there, but
you look younger.
statistically people you know, people drop off around, according to the CIA fact book, around 73, 75 years old on the average. Some make it
Well,
up into their 90s, some make it only into the 60s, you know. So uh, if we
we
have
live
this technology, we
Mhm,
could regenerate. They tune
exactly.
into the DNA and the blueprint of us in our 20s and whatever is there and can be activated. Everything, this matrix that we are in is formed through consciousness.
And you
And
mentioned in our previous episode about these bed meds. Yes, those medical beds. Sorry about those med beds. Yeah, and you said that they are able to reconfigurate your DNA and to regenerate it.
yes, you can take you, well, they've already been doing it to all the secret
Yeah,
space program witnesses.
exactly.
They've been reverse
Age
aging
reversing.
them.
Hmm.
And so why do you need pharmaceuticals? Why do you need
Yeah,
hospitals? You just go to your local medbed facility. You know,
yeah,
they can start mass producing these and get them out all over the world. And so everybody can benefit.
yes,
And
exactly.
like William Tompkins says, you know, everything in our books, our history, our science is
It's
all
a lie.
disinformation.
Yes.
and we can be educated into the truth rather than the deception. And what that would open up is, once we are evolved, our civilization, and not being hoodwinked by this deep state cabal that has hijacked our planet for decades, we can then have cultural exchange with other off-planet cultures, and that would excel our evolution considerably. And that's a good thing,
Yes.
because as they say, the truth shall set you free.
Yes.
So
I believe it.
There's a lot of deceptions that have imprisoned us or imprisoned our minds for decades. And once we are liberated to know the full truth of our spiritual nature and the universe and our place in the universe, the universe is the limit.
Yeah, exactly. Dan, the last question in this episode. Do you think that cosmic intervention will happen? Cosmic intervention.
Well, it appears it's already been happening, and there are groups that are working behind the scenes. I think there's somewhat of a prime directive, like in Star Trek, where we have to be the decision makers. We have to be the ones that make the choice, but we need to have informed consent. We need to give our consent based on truth, not deception. And now the world is waking up to that. It's been deceived for many decades. And now our civilization can take back control of our planet in a peaceful, loving way that will help evolve all beings on this planet.
So you know what? I've got another question. Sorry about that, but
I love questions.
But this is just general question from our audience, and people just keep asking what to do to speed up the full disclosure, how they can help, how can they put much effort, or what they can do in order to speed it up, to speed up the full disclosure. What would be your advice?
I would, you need to educate yourself as much as possible, because as you educate yourself about the reality of all this, as we spoke earlier, we're all like a fractal of a larger collective mind, and we affect all the other minds. You can't affect a fractal in a hologram and not affect every part of the hologram. And so each one of us is having an effect. And so, my wife and I, we monitor the mainstream news like CBS, CNN, and, all, just to see what they're saying. Well, I can't watch it too long, but I like to see what they're up to, what their next move is. It's looking like they're painting it with Trump as like, oh, he's doing a baseless rant about election irregularities. You go to other sources online that have not been taken down. Newsmax, One American News Network, OANN, Newsmax, News, MAX. There's it's interesting that the military intelligence postings have gone silent since about a month ago or so. And the very last post, it was only said one word. And it's interesting, the very first post, John Durham, back in 2017, was assigned. And the last word was Durham. John Durham's been working behind the scenes on exactly what we've been talking about. And in fact, his background, if you look at it, he was famous for taking down huge crime syndicates, because you don't just take out, the mob boss. You don't take out their hitmen and all their different people. You take them not one at a time. You take them down, boom, all at once. And it looks like this will be this will be what the children in the future will look back in history books. So this will be one of the most historic events in our Earth's history, that when the deep cabal that had infiltrated in and manipulated the population through control of their perceptions and energy and everything like that was finally taken down, due to that executive order that President Eisenhower, my dear friend Laura Eisenhower, we did a show on the history of that. If you go to the webmatrix.net, you can see a video on that in the 2020 timeline.
Yes, I watched your interview that you sent me. Brilliant, perfect, lots of information, really, really good. Laura was kind of emotional about that, and she was agitated because of this situation. I can't blame her for that, because it is really annoying what's going on now.
Eisenhower was a trusting man. He was, tied in with the secret societies, Knight of Malta. He wanted to have public disclosure back with the Nordics back in February of 1954, but I believe that the Vatican, who
yes, Dan, I was referring to your interview with Laura Eisenhower that you sent me. With Laura, all those, on the website, on the YouTube channel, it was,
I couldn't put it on YouTube. I had to go on BitChute, because else it would be, I said words that get taken down.
Tier life, Fact or Tier Life, It was on this channel with this guy, So I just watched it, and it's brilliant. It is really, really good.
It's public information that's accessible. You just have to research and find it. But
okay, Dan. So let's end this episode, with this optimistic message that you said, that we need to educate ourselves and we need to spread the word, and that's how are we going to help with the full disclosure. Is that right?
Share with others and share with friends, and
exactly.
and don't accept the deceptions. And my God, we're on the threshold right now of this potentially transforming in the best way, unimaginably wonderful future for planet Earth.
Exactly. So thank you, Dan, for being here. Thank you very much. And I hope we will have something in the future to say about the future events.
Thank you, Slavik, and thank you for the work that you do in assisting in bringing information out for this transformation.
That our team is doing that, yes, but thank you very much on behalf of our team. Thank you, and I hope we'll see you again soon.
I look forward.
Okay.